Welcome back to class. Today we are going to continue with micronutrients part 2. Last week we talked about micronutrients 1, where we dealt with the vitamins, vitamin A and folic acid, at the 2 vitamins of global importance. And today we shall deal with the trace elements of global importance. And once again, to recap, we get our micronutrients basically from our protective foods, that is our fruits and vegetables. Yes. So at the end of this lecture, you should be able to identify or classify the minerals and give examples, identify the major minerals of global importance and their roles in the body, explain the consequences of specific mineral deficiencies and their most important food sources, and then those that are of global significance. The minerals are divided into 2 macro elements or minerals, and these are needed in larger amounts from 100 milligrams to 2 grams quantities. For example, when we talk of calcium, we need calcium in large quantities that form our bones and our teeth. This is a typical example of a macro element that you can identify with bones. Our bones are made up of calcium. Whereas with the with the trace elements, they are needed in smaller quantities. Another typical example that you can easily identify with concerning the macronutrients is sodium. Sodium, and the common salt that we use in our everyday cooking contains sodium. Trace or micro elements, they occur in the body in small quantities, small minute quantities from milligrams to micrograms. And examples are copper, iodine, iron, and zinc. But we shall deal specifically with iodine, iron, and zinc because these 3 are what are of global health importance. What is the general functions of minerals or elements? They regulate activities of many enzymes. They maintain acid-base balance, maintain osmotic pressure, facilitate membrane transfer of essential nutrients, and so forth. And some are also involved in growth. So we see very, very important, very, very important. And if you should forget at all, you shouldn't forget calcium for bone and teeth development. And it is important for us to note that no single food contains all of the minerals needed by the body. As such, dietary diversity is key. Dietary diversity, so we should be eating from diverse foods. We shall deal with the 3 micronutrients. The first one is iodine. Iodine, important for the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland, as you see on the diagram, is located in front of the neck, in front of the neck. So whenever there's iodine deficiency, we see an enlargement in front of the neck, which is usually referred to as goitre. Goitre is the common name. So, but one thing we should remember, that it is not all goitre that is due to iodine deficiency. Remember, in science, we always have plus or minus 5. We follow a bell-shaped curve. So in most cases, it is due to iodine deficiency, but just few cases that we see that it is not due to that. So you see the picture on the screen, different stages of goitre, which is great, and we see it among children. So that makes it a challenge. And when this happens, it is very, very uncomfortable. The children are not able to grow well. Their mental ability is also reduced. And this is a mother she has challenges with her mental level. So iodine deficiency alone is always not the cause, which I have stated. So please take note of this. This is very, very important, so that we don't go out judging people when we see them with goitre that they are iodine deficient. But it is the greatest contributor. Yes. Iodine deficiency, if a mother is deficient, can result in a child that she gives birth to be mentally retarded. So that is why women of childbearing age, if you recall, I said earlier on, when it comes to the micronutrients, we are so particular about them. So all women of childbearing age need to be iodine sufficient before they get pregnant. And studies have shown that in most parts in Ghana, where we have endemic in the north and in the mountainous regions, but the north is the worst, we see the women getting the goitre when they become pregnant, because during pregnancy, the demands are high on the mother. And out of that is where we see the goitre coming out. And once that happens, the child she's carrying is automatically going to be affected. So this is a child who is mentally retarded. No, he cannot do anything on his own. So it becomes a challenge for the family and has some serious economic implications for the nation and for the family. But the family bears the greatest burden because you have to take care of this child all over. But common iodinated salt can prevent this, or seafood. So people have different ideas why this happened. And in Ghana, we did a survey and we saw some of what people perceive to be the cause of goitre, which means that our people do not have the knowledge. Some attribute it to spitting into fire, which is quite strange anyway. Others also said if a woman talks too much. Why? Because people know that women talk too much. But I doubt whether men don't talk. Men can talk. And also when the child is crying excessively, then the goitre develops. But that is also wrong. But these are what people perceive. So it is up to us as we go out there to refute some of these perceptions and let them know that it is lack of iodine. So if the deficiency happens, yes, collectively we call it cretinism, the iodine deficiency disorders. Cretinism, which is characterized by dwarfism, the child does not grow tall, becomes very short. There is mental retardation, IQ therefore is below average, and globally we have quite a huge number of children, millions, who are at risk of iodine deficiency. The main source of iodine is seafood. But we also get some from soils that are rich, but if the water is leached out, and most of the time these minerals are also leached out, then the soil becomes deficient. Therefore, crops that are grown on such a soil will not have enough iodine in them. And we see that especially from mountainous areas, because when it rains, the water is washed down. And also we see a lot of iodine deficiency among people who live far away from the sea, because we said the richest source is seafood, because all the waters wash into the sea. So for all the nutrients that are leached are carried into the sea. Therefore, seafood is rich. It is therefore against this background that salt iodization took place in Ghana, because Ghana is an endemic area where we have quite a number of our people being deficient in iodine. And as I said, alone skewed towards our women of childbearing age. So iodinated salt is the key to alleviate iodine deficiency disorders in Ghana. And why salt? Salt, because everybody uses salt in cooking one way or the other. Yes, so that is why Ghana adopted this strategy. And other parts of the world have also adopted this strategy. However, if somebody has been identified as salt sensitive, hypertensive, then this might not be, the person shouldn't use the salt and adhere to and make sure that he or she rather uses seafood so that can get the iodine. Yes, our next trace element of importance is iron. And you see from the meat, red meat is the best source. However, majority of our people cannot afford, because this is very, very expensive. This is very, very expensive. But there are other food sources which we can get it from. So it is not only from meat, we get it from plant sources. And from plant sources, we call it non-heme iron, because from animal source, it's called heme. And the animal source, it is easily absorbed, unlike the plant source, which cannot be absorbed easily. And from the plant source, the non-heme, there are challenges, poor absorption, and the iron found in the plant source is iron 3. Iron 3. And iron 3 has to be reduced to iron 2. And for this reduction to take place, one needs vitamin C. One is vitamin C. And where do we get vitamin C from? From our fruits and vegetables. So as we eat our legumes that are rich in iron, we need to take our fruits and our vegetables that are also rich in vitamin C, so that we can be able to convert the iron from iron 3 to iron 2. And studies have also shown that even when we are not eating the meat or fish or poultry, but we add small amounts to our food. So I advocate for addition of small amount of anchovies powder, what we usually call the Kita schoolboys. That will help to improve the absorbability of the iron from plant foods. Milk is a poor source of iron. Human milk contains very low, cow milk is also low. And that explains why we encourage complementary feeding after 6 months. Because when the child is feeding on the breast milk, the child is not getting enough iron. The child survives on iron from the mother when she was pregnant. That is why it is important that the mother eats well, so she can be able to give enough to the child to keep the child through the 6 months when she's doing exclusive breastfeeding. Yes. So there are other factors that inhibit as well as enhance iron. I've mentioned some of the enhancers, and there are other inhibitors. So if a woman is very anemic during pregnancy, it is wrong to drink tea. Tea contains substances that will hinder iron absorption. They will bind them. Coffee is the same. Calcium and other phosphorus compounds also tend to bind. And then we also have phytates and tannins, and then fiber. So the woman should also go low on fiber. Otherwise, they will bind the iron and it will not be available. So iron in the body plays an important role when it comes to blood formation. Hemoglobin, it is a component of the hemoglobin which carries oxygen to the lungs and to all parts of the body. So if there is lack of iron, then of course we cannot form enough blood. And once we cannot form enough blood, then we should know that one will not have enough oxygen. Yes, therefore fatigue sets in. Easily one becomes very lethargic. Yes, there's also dizziness and so forth. So it is very, very important. Iron also plays an important role as a coenzyme in most parts of the body parts. So it is important that we make sure that we have iron. So for pregnant women, it is key. Otherwise, iron deficiency anemia sets in. And this is a major challenge globally, iron deficiency anemia. And the anemia is characterized by the red blood cells looks very tiny. They are not healthy. They are small. And that is why anemia due to iron deficiency is called microcytic. Micro meaning small, if you recall, micro. Micro meaning small. Whereas anemia due to folic acid deficiency is called macro, because the blood cells are larger and bigger. Yes, and therefore when this becomes small, the carrying capacity to carry oxygen is reduced because they are so small, they can't do it. So we have on the screen the normal red blood cells. See how round they are, looking fine, whereas the ones that are lacking iron, you see, they are not, the shapes are not right and they look very small. So iron deficiency anemia is not always caused by not having enough, but when we are also having infections and so forth, it can also cause anemia. Malaria infestation, worm infestation can also cause it. So it is very, very important. So apart from the ability to do work, that one becomes very lethargic. Yes, studies have also shown that for children, it can also impair brain development. It is very, very important. So most of our children, it is not that they are not intelligent, but because they are anemic. So we need to take note of that. And I've talked of other causes of anemia. I mentioned malaria. And then also another way we can see that one is anemic is when we also look at our nails. Yes, and especially with the adults, the shape of the nail can tell us that the spoon shaped, that there is anemia going on. Because there are some people, I don't know, it may be genetically, when there is a deficiency, they hardly will not feel dizzy, they will not feel lethargic, but the deficiency is there. So our nails can tell us that there is a deficiency. So other signs of anemia, there can be apathy, behavior changes, yes, hyperactivity, lack of appetite is also one major one that we need to consider. When it comes to requirements, yes, The highest needs are for women of childbearing age between 15 to 45, pregnant and lactating women, infants, and children. And as I said earlier on, it is based upon these groups that the World Declaration by WHO came about as nutrients of public health significance. Our last micronutrient of public health significance is zinc. Zinc is also essential, and it is present in many enzyme systems in the body. So many enzyme systems in the body. So if zinc is lacking, I know that many enzyme systems in the body cannot work, because the enzymes, they facilitate activities in the body, all reactions in the body. They also work with proteins in every organ. We find zinc in the skin, in the skeleton, in our hair, and then other important organs. When it comes to the male, the prostate gland is a major site where we also have zinc. Food sources from both plants and animals, and the richest source, we have our meat, eggs, and seafood to be the rich source. And so this tells us that, yes, dietary diversification is key that we need to follow. In developing countries, we rely mostly on plant source foods, such as maize, legumes, and nuts. But once again, we have anti-nutritional factors, just like I mentioned for iron, the phytates, the tannins, and the oxalates, that also hinder. But when they are processed, for example, fermentation, when it comes to our cereals, can overcome some of these phytates, tannins, and oxalates. So zinc deficiency, what do we see? We see poor growth, because if you recall, I linked it to protein functions in the body. And for children, you need the protein for growth. And if there is no zinc, how can they grow? Because the proteins cannot function properly. I also linked it to many enzyme systems. And the enzymes are there to help with all reactions in the body. So if zinc is lacking, this cannot go on. Yes, it's lacking, of course, reduced appetite. And when there's reduced appetite, the child may not be able to eat properly. It's also associated with anemia, because, of course, when you are making blood, you need protein. We saw zinc linked to protein. Therefore, if there's no proper function, no protein, of course, blood anemia can also set in. And then slow wound healing is also another common thing. So when there is growth retardation, of course, we should see that puberty will delay. And in males, we've also seen that the genitalia becomes smaller than normal. And when you look at the two individuals we see on the screen, they are supposed to be of the same age. But look at them, dwarfism, because the other one was lacking zinc. So zinc deficiency is a challenge. And recently, it's also been associated with diarrhea. No? So if there is infection, one is zinc sufficient, it can reduce the diarrhea. It is against this background that the zinc vaccine is now available and it's being given to children in our part of the world. And I am proud to say that this thing was developed in our own university, the Ugrc Memorial Institute, together with WHO. So the trial is going on in Ghana with zinc. So it tells us the importance of zinc when it comes to young child growth and development. Zinc is very, very important and has been linked to PEM, and all because of the protein. And then studies has also shown that people who are alcoholics, they also tend to be deficient in the iron, in the zinc as an element, as a trace element. And then, of course, when we have liver and renal diseases, zinc deficiency is also very common. So we've gone through all the micronutrients, 5 of them of global health importance, 2 vitamins, vitamin A and folic acid, vitamin A fat soluble, folic acid water soluble, and then the trace elements, iron, iodine, and zinc. And they all play important role in all metabolic activities in the body. Therefore, deficiency poses a problem. And this is skewed towards women and children of childbearing age. So for our take-home this week, we should be able to name the trace elements of public health significance, and why should a woman take a lot of green leafy vegetables. And as I mentioned, green leafy vegetables, they are rich in iron, they are rich in vitamin A, they are rich in vitamin C, they are also rich in folic acid. So you see, with one stone, you can kill so many birds. So we need to encourage our women. So we should understand why. Whatever we tell people, we should be able to explain the why. The why is the key to alleviating malnutrition in Ghana. So make sure you do your readings, and then next week we shall talk about water. When I listed the nutrients, I mentioned that water is also a nutrient, that most people do not think of water as a nutrient. But next week, I think we shall talk on food safety and hygiene before I move on to water. Thank you.